Cool beans. Aloha, everyone. Welcome to New Age Starlit. I'm so excited to be sitting down with Trew Love, who is an artist and an activist and all things revolutionary. Thanks so much for being here.
It's truly my pleasure.
Oh, how many of those can we drop today? Okay, so I wanted to start off by asking you, can you give me a little bit of an elevator pitch about what it is that you do, how all of these things in your life intersect?
So interesting that you ask that. I think for a really long time it was really figuring out, because I've been able to paint and create very easily since I was a kid. It was sort of like a natural ability, but I never really found something that really resonated, a collection or a concept that really resonated with me as a person. So it's been a very long journey of like spiritual work and really diving into who I am as a person before I was able to really extract what I really wanted to say to this world. So actually I'll just give a little bit more background. So I was following Standing Rock from the very beginning days when it happened, and I just could not believe that these atrocities were happening on U.S. soil and that nobody was covering it and that it was so rare that people knew about it. And then fast forward a few months through the winter and Trump got elected and reinstated the Dakota Access Pipeline. And there was a massive protest. There was protests everywhere. And I was just really felt that my soul was called to action. So I went to that protest and I started posting on Facebook about, I wanted to get a group of people together to hold signs outside of Wells Fargo that said, did you know that your dollars are going to fund the potential intoxication of water of up to 17 million people? Because people didn't really associate their accounts with these types of atrocities. They don't really understand the connection. I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have in society today is nobody understands banking. And
not knowing your impact.
Not knowing your impact, not understanding your power. Because essentially in today's society, we've been taught that we are powerless workers that will just go and collect a paycheck, and that's really the end-all, be-all function of life. So I think that at this point it's being reevaluated, I should say. But essentially, so I became really passionate. I got invited to a meeting for RevolutionLA, which is the group that I'm now I'm the director of communications for RevolutionLA, which is very exciting. And since then, we've created the DivestLA campaign, which is pushed to divest $40 million from Wells Fargo with the we should be hearing about the full $8 billion within the next couple of weeks.
That is a lot of cash. And now that's the whole California state budget.
No, this is just Los Angeles.
Oh my goodness! Oh.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the state of California actually already divested, but it was not big news. Apparently, it was not big news that California divested. It's severely underreported. So it's good that we're having these conversations because it really needs to have the awareness. So essentially, we're waiting to hear on whether or not the city is going to divest the full $8 billion. But the question then naturally becomes, what do you do with that amount of money other than put it into another large fraudulent bank? So the discussion naturally turned into creating a municipal bank, a public bank that's owned, run, and operated by the people for the people, where all of the investments that were previously being extracted by the Wall Street industry will then be reinvested back into the economy here in LA. So, and then it's interesting too, I'll get into the art in a second, but this is really important. But just today, and this is, when are you going to post this?
Soon enough.
Okay, soon enough. Soon enough. Okay, good.
So fresh news is good.
I have to check because it's kind of like on the hush hush. But as of right now, so Los Angeles has signed on to the LEAP Manifesto, which is a very forward campaign created by Naomi Klein and a group of people who discuss the real necessity to create sustainable energy sources, and while we create the infrastructure for these, that we also simultaneously heal the communities, the frontline communities that have been the most harmed by the fossil fuel industry. So it's a really intersectionality of healing and transition. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So Los Angeles signed on to this. We actually have a very progressive city council, especially now that we've got so much people power making sure that they do it. But so we are having a roundtable discussion. It's a very close-knit group of people, and RevolutionLA has been invited to participate in this discussion about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and who needs to be on board so that we can really get this happening. Because they want this to be a World War II style mobilization where the entire city rises up to make this possible, because that's how fast we have to act. I mean, like, I don't think that there's any debate about the fact that action needs to be now. It needs to be yesterday, and it needs to be fast, and we need to work together. So essentially, one of the things that we've developed as a part of developing our internal structure and expectations is we created a specific protocol for conflict resolution, which is where we know a group of no more than 6 people, so that it's not a mobbing situation where people can't harp and jump and get in groups. But it's, you know, when you sit at a table sharing something like a hookah or a peace pipe, a peace pipe is a very real thing. It breaks down the barriers of you versus me, because you're still facilitating an action of sharing while you're discussing things that are a little bit more difficult to share. So it's been really interesting because, I mean, I've never worked for a company that had a conflict resolution protocol.
Yeah, I've never even really heard of
you
that.
know what I mean? So, I mean, that in itself, and it's so interesting because that in itself is revolutionary. Because we found a strategy that allows people to have a safe space to be able to communicate and to be vulnerable. And we've completely written out the tactics that are not allowed, like mobbing or discussing behind the backs, call-outs, invasive call-outs. Yeah, so we've really developed like
a new level of maturity.
Absolutely, but I mean, if you think about it, I mean, like, and it kind of ties into what I said before, is that, like, humanity has reached the end of its growth period. We are now, like, moving into like a more like a maturation, essentially. So why wouldn't also our communication need to mature? In fact, if anything, that would need to be at the basis of our maturation, because we cannot evolve without evolving our communication first.
Trew's also an incredible makeup artist and just beautiful in general, but certainly a part of the Hollywood scene, and you are working jobs that have you in front of all these celebrities and actors and actresses and whoever, people of high profile. What has it been like for you to be in that environment and remain true and authentic to yourself and maybe inspire a bit of positive body image into the world?
It's so funny that you mentioned that. I mean, I think that as time goes on, the disconnect between who I am as a person and what I do for a living is becoming wider and wider and wider. But it's interesting because it's not just me. Because essentially what I've noticed is people who have come to the beauty industry do so generally because, not only because they like makeup, but because they love making people feel beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that comes from a much deeper place. And I think that as makeup has become over-commercialized, as it has everything else, and it's really just about what's the latest packaging, what's the latest color, your skin's not good enough, buy this product, you're not thin enough, buy this product, you need this in your hair, you don't need that in your hair, and all this other stuff. I think that soul element that drew a lot of us to the industry, it has been extracted. But I think that that's just really characteristic of pretty much every industry. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because I actually was kind of conceptualizing putting together like a beauty industry mobilization concept where I want to put like this like little pamphlet together that says like beauty industry for a beautiful planet.
She's changing the beauty industry next.
because the thing is that if you really recognize that there's a lot of souls in the beauty industry who feel that they've lost purpose and lost caring for what they do, the space that creates a space into which you can inspire activism. So, and I think that that's essentially where we are. And I've talked to a couple of different people within the industry, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this sounds great. Whenever you get it ready, give me, here's my number." So I think that that's definitely a strategy that I'll, like an element that I'll be able to utilize at the right time for the right purpose. So I'm not rushing everything. I literally say this all the time. My hands are off the wheel. I am not driving my life. All I know is like, on a daily basis, I know what I need to do in order to take those next couple of steps forward. But as far as the outcome, I'm not emotionally tied to it because it's really not my call. Mm-hmm. I'm here to serve a higher purpose. I'm here to bring people together, facilitate healing, move us beyond some of the pains that we experience in this world, and I'm using my talents to do that. But I say my out of habit, they were, I think it's really important that we start talking about talents as gifts. And when we talk about our talents as gifts, I think that the natural response for a gift is gratitude, and the gratitude is how you use those gifts. And I think that those gifts that we're given should be used in order to facilitate moving human consciousness along and moving our societies into a better place. So whatever those talents are, whether it's accounting, we'll need accounting, we'll need fundraising, we'll need art, we'll need policy directors, we'll need research. I mean, like, it's really honestly just like look at whatever skills that you have and figure out like what exactly could I do that would be benefiting this movement.
Amy Poehler has a quote about, in her book, Yes, Please. She's actually speaking of beauty, and she said, from a young age, I just feel like this applies here. From a young age, I realized that beauty wasn't my currency, so I figured out what were my gifts, what was my currency, what could I exchange to others, what can I offer? And I think that was a really beautiful way to close our interview. So think about, what is your currency? How can you change the world? Maybe you're really good at making smoothies, and you're gonna come up with a superfood recipe that changes everyone's digestive system.
It's funny actually that I have to actually at least say this, because one of our revolutionary friends, Dan McAllister, shout out, created an app called Crop Swap, which essentially is like if you grow in your own crops, you can find other people in your area via GPS.
So rad.
So you can either exchange for other crops, you can exchange for labor, or you can exchange for money, and you get to choose. So, I mean, if you want to talk about, like, the different ways that we can revolutionize, and he's also created an online platform where he's just going to create an education forum for how you can grow your own plants, because essentially we become so disconnected from our food source. So that's yet another thing that we need to revolutionize, is reconnecting with our nutrients and our participation in the growth in that. But lastly, what I want to say, which I think is super important, because I think that a lot of people find activism to be really intimidating, and it's like it's for all the crazy hippie dippies. But
how do I start? I think that's like
right. How do I start?
The
way that you start, first of all, is asking yourself what you care the most about, and then just researching what organizations in your area exist for that. And if they don't, think about how you can facilitate one. You can start a meetup group. You can start a Facebook page. You can just talk amongst your friends and see if somebody wants to help you in an organizing a new group, because it's really exciting time, because then you can start collaborating with other groups. Like we started collaborating with Artivists in Action, which is a group here in Los Angeles who are just creative professionals from film, from art, from TV, lighting specialists, sound specialists, written poets. So there's so many different creative people who are coming to say, how can we use our creative talents in order to facilitate the lack of creative element that other organizations in the area have. Awesome. So they just lend their own skills and capabilities to facilitate other people's motions. So there's a lot of intersectionality. It's a great opportunity to meet people who care. I think that that's been one of the most magnificent parts of my experience, is that my roots have deepened, they have thickened, they have expanded, and everybody that I continue to meet is in some way a part of my journey to this place, wherever it is that we're going.
She's so perfect. Thank you so much, Trew. Okay, can you let everyone know real quick where they can find you?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Instagram at Trew, TREW_artist. You can find our revolutionary group at RevolutionLA.org, DivestLA.com, publicbankla.org.
This is all going to show up to them.
And you can find my art at JustTrew, JustTrew.com.
And you guys definitely want to check it out. Thank you so much, Trew Love.
Thank you so
Truly
much.
love you.
It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to providing some very exciting updates, because you know what? The best days are always ahead. So long as I continue to say it, it always continues to be true. On that note.